Alright, back where we seemingly left off. So one of the things I said I was going to do last time was get the gap on these little hop guards. Now, theoretically, let's see if this will come into focus. Yes, maybe? Ooh, 20 thou. That's a 20 thou feeler gauge. There she is. So that's a 20 thou feeler gauge. According to the manual, the gauge should be about a 20 thousandths gap. That it slides in there, so it's definitely in excess of 20 thousandths. I would say it's a little more than that though, because I can take this 32 thou feeler gauge. Again, let's see if we can get that to focus. 32 thou, and it will also go in there, though it's it's actually loose on the left side. Perfectly snug. Probably, I would call that just about 32 thou on that side though. Not surprising. I mean, these belts get thinner with age, right? They just wear out. They're rubbing on the idlers on the outside of the belt, and then of course they're rubbing on the toothed side, on the teeth side of the belt. So there's just not as much belt there as there used to be. So that's not terribly surprising. Here, same thing. I will say that these are significantly looser because they'll take that 32 thou feeler gauge like very easily. Kind of got to check at the corners because you get a curvature mismatch there in the middle, and so it'll always kind of seem tighter than it really is. So, but while we're talking about that, so I did that was more just kind of a check of like how much wear are we talking about. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of give you a little review of where all the timing marks are. Okay, so this is where having an actual manual gets useful. So this tells me where all of the timing marks should be when we go to install it. I'm going to try to get them there when we remove it and then lock everything in place. So, if you look here, you can see that we have this white mark, and then much more difficult to see in this light is you can see the mark on the block here. There is also a mark back there on the pulley as well. I'm not sure that's going to come out very well. Let's see if we can get it there. Well, imagine, if you will, the mark that you can almost see back there. Yeah, you can't quite see it from this angle. If that little cover wasn't on there, maybe you'll see it better. Anyway, so that's where we start. Crank pulley mark right there. I don't see a mark on the belt to go with that, but that probably isn't too surprising. Could be a different spot on the belt. But those are where they're supposed to be. So coming around to what they call the right-hand side, we have this nice big mark up here. It's a single mark. And there's back here, you can't really see it as well, but there's a mark on the timing belt cover. So those need to be there. Likewise, oops, let's see, can I get you guys down here? Oh, that's there. Okay, you have to come in at an angle. So there's a pair of marks on the two pulleys, and you can kind of see the two sets of marks are lined up. And then likewise over here, I can't really see the viewfinder right now, so you can see there's a mark on the pulley and on the left side of the pulley here, and there's also a mark on the timing belt cover, the aft timing belt cover. So there's kind of a mirror image of all of that over here in this bright light, and it's easier to see these two marks, but there is an equivalent mark here that goes in with a mark up here on the top, and then likewise one here on this side and one that lines up there. So one of the pieces that isn't called out in the manual is there's a holder that will hold, so these two pulleys for whatever reason are basically under spring tension. Apparently in this position, these two pulleys, these two cranks are in what they call a zero lift position, so basically they're not pushing on any springs. On this side they are pushing on some springs. So what I can do is use this bolt and the bolt that's underneath of here to hold both of them relative to each other. So what I gotta do is I gotta take this cover off, access the bolt here, and then I have a tool that will actually lock both of these together so they can't move. And then we can get the existing belt off without slipping timing and go from there. Alright, so we can go ahead and take this little cap off. I'll be honest with with you, I don't really fully understand what this little cap does. Just a little concerning. You're taking something off that the purpose of which is unclear. It's not wanting to come off. Curiouser and curiouser. Okay. A little worrying. I'll put the screws back in. With my understanding, there wasn't really anything under here, but car companies tend to spend money on pieces they don't need. So, let's see what we got. Okay. Okay. Might have just been stuck. Might have been that simple, because I'm not feeling any real pressure against it now. And make sure there wasn't like something being retained there that I would regret removing. No, it looks like maybe an oil or dirt seal. So I think we're in good shape. Yeah, it looks like, okay, so there's an O-ring right here. And it's got a little bit of a slight film of oil on it, so there may be some oil that comes through that on occasion. So I think we're in okay shape. That's good. I got a little nervous there for a minute. So now that we got that off, I can kind of give you a quick visual of how this is supposed to work. Alrighty. So there's magnets on this thing. I'll give you a close-up view here momentarily. Oh, I see. Like that's not what I was looking for. And let's see if I can get this going. Ah, there we go. So, yeah. So I'll have to tighten all these fasteners, but I'll give you a close-up view. So you can kind of see the two. So that's the bolt that holds the cam sprocket on, and there's the other one. And they're hex head fasteners, socket heads. And so basically this has got a hex feature on it that goes in there. It's got a magnet that keeps it in there, otherwise it would just want to fall out. So it's actually got some strong magnets on both ends. And they're actually not on the same plane, so you can see there's a little spacer down here at the bottom to remedy that. So basically all I'll have to do is hold this and tighten these two features so basically they don't want to turn. And then when I pull the belt off, any of the spring tension that's inside of here will have will then have to kind of fight each other, and then they can't move. So that way they should stay locked. So we can get that all torqued up, and then we should be free to pull the belt once we remove the tension from the belt. Alright. I don't want to go turn the engine or turn this crank at all, because everything's, like I showed you, timed where I want it to be, so. Kind of a do no harm approach here. That's one of the reasons I use the backing wrench on there and don't just try to drive against the pulleys. You don't gotta kill it, it's just gotta be tight enough that it can't slip under its own power. Okay, so now I think we've got that generally in the right place. And locked. That's not going to come out of there terribly easily. In fact, it's a little bit, I think I've kind of bound them up just maybe just a hair. So I think those should not move. Hopefully I haven't induced any stretch into the belt that's going to release, but we'll keep an eye for that when we untension the belt. Off come the little guides. So there's that. Feels like it's got some kind of locking mechanism in the back. Can't quite figure out what that is. Kind of try to be careful with it. I don't want to overdo anything. It definitely has some kind of resistance. Be nice if I had proper hex bits for a ratchet here, but this will get you by in a pinch. Alright, so I ginned myself something up. Got these hex bits. They're really made for more like a hand driver, but they have a 1/4 inch end on them, so they can fit in a 1/4 inch socket. I can try that way. Alright. Let's see if I can show you. Alright, here we go. See if it'll focus. Whoop. So you can see that kind of orange material on there, and that's the thread locker that was on. You can see in difference to what I was showing you before about possible thread locker, it runs all the way up and down. So I'll look in the manual and see what they recommend for whether this is a thread locker or not, and I will use the same when I put it back in. Ha! Well, turns out I may have been approaching this wrong the whole time. Let's see if I can focus you. So the design of this thing is a little bit not exactly like I thought it was. It actually allows the bolts to kind of slide on and then pinch. So I don't think it was actually, those bolts didn't need to come all the way out the whole time, because this can just lift off of them. So that might have been a little bit of my problem, but you know, now I know. And so there you go. Of course, if they did have Loctite on them, I'm not sure how you would have done that any other way. Because once you break this stuff off of here, it's not good anymore. That orange stuff. So I feel like if I had broken it free, I would have still had to take it apart and clean it out and do all that and put new Loctite. So maybe moot, but there you go. Alright, so I have all of the little corner pieces off, and now I've got my little thing here from the factory manual. And one of the things it tells me is the distance, so this belt has marks on it, and my new belt also has marks on it. So there's a dashed mark, and that's this one. Thing is it's not symmetric. So here it tells me that number 4, which is this distance, is 54.5 teeth, but this distance is 51 teeth. So I've got to count. Now the original factory belt has an arrow on it, which this one doesn't have. So I got to get the, I got to count out the teeth on this belt, and then I'll figure out which way is which and put a little arrow on there of my own to make sure I have it in the right place, in the right orientation. Okay, so I have now my little nice pink arrow here. Tells me which way everything goes. So I counted all my teeth. And then I'll show you something else. Okay, so just for in the unlikely event that I got to come back in here and put this belt back on for some reason, I have gone ahead and marked the top spots at the same locations. So I have those. There are additional marks on the regular belts, but I would have to pull the belt out and count teeth to get those on. But that should at least get me oriented. So if it came down to it, I'd count those teeth and do that. But I figure I might be throwing that belt away. I should be throwing that belt away, but can't hurt. So according to the Subaru manual, this is idler A, some of the time at least. So this is one of the idlers, and this is the first idler to come off and the last idler to go on. When you remove it, though, you got to be fairly careful. You can break it loose, and then you got to support it as you basically as you disengage the screw, especially along the final threads, because we've only got, like, a thread or half a thread in there, and there's tension from this belt pushing down. It can cause some problems and cause you to basically damage the threads on the bolts or the hole, which would be even worse. So we'll take some caution doing that. Bring that out of there. Let's see, probably can't see too much without amount of light, but so you can see on the face of here there are some markings, and these are the part markings from the manufacturer. So the first thing you can see here, if you can make that out, is an NSK. NSK is the manufacturer of these. Let's see if I can kind of spin it around. It's got some other kind of nomenclature here, and I think it's a part number right here. What I'll do when I get this thing all the way out, I will compare it to the one I have in my kit, which is a kit manufactured by a company called Asen. Actually, that's pretty worn out. You can kind of feel the slop in those bearings. I'll compare this part numbering to the one I got in my kit, and what I tend to find, and I always try to verify, is that I have a like for like. I have the exact same part number, with the same manufacturer. So that way I'm making sure I'm doing there's no questions of did I get the same part or not. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you the comparison.
Alright, now we're going to take out idler number 2 here, not B, number 2. Since the pressure's already off the belt, there's much less risk of screwing the threads up as you bring it out. Still has some weight to it though, so best be careful. This is a tooth idler. Ooh, yeah, it's been gathering some junk right here. So once we use this, turns out I misread the manual there, I skipped over a step, so I actually just pop this one off. idler seat. So I might not have had enough, or I might have had too much on there. So, like I say, be very, very careful, make sure you're loading it in the right place at the end of all this. On further inspection, I think what happened there was the belt just got loose and jumped. I don't think the sprocket turned. Alright, let's get this stuff out of here.
So now, last thing I gotta take off is this tensioner right here. Alright, oh, that looks like that's a captive fastener. So the last item I really gotta take out of here is the water pump. So I have to take off those two coolant lines I forgot, and then I'll have to work from there. Yeah, so this has turned into a much bigger pain in the rear end than I expected it to be. Those two hoses go in and out of the water pump and run to the oil cooler. But they are just fighting me right there. So let's see here, right where they go in, right here and right here. So those are the clamps for them. I've slid the clamps all the way up, but yeah, they're really kind of stuck on there. So I had to jack the car up and get under here. I was trying to do it from below, and it wasn't happening. Keep on working. After great trial and tribulation, water pump's out. So from earlier, the thermostat housing here was on. I thought it would give me more access to these hoses behind it, which it did. It just didn't help any. So as you can see, there's like a black residue here and a black residue here. I think that is kind of like almost melting of the hoses onto these nipples. Because if you look here, there's some deterioration of the thermostat seal. And that thing's, usually that thing will come out of there, and it's pretty well welded in. So I'm kind of glad I'm replacing this. I'm probably going to replace the hoses that went onto those two locations as well, because I have a feeling that they've been compromised to the point where it's probably no point in putting them back on and finding out they leak. So, in fact, I might replace all these hoses. There's an oil cooler line that runs right here. It runs right along the exhaust manifold, which is undoubtedly part of the problem. And so that connection was one of the ones, it's this left side connection here. And then the other two are right here, and it was the bottom side that was causing me the most heartache. Top side didn't have as many problems, but those both kind of take a 90 and go up. So I'll see what I can do about replacing those. Replace this one, I think, along the line. I gotta see if this whole piece comes as one or not. You can see the oil cooler here has definitely got some residue on it, so it's not without its own leaks, but it's not too bad. So I might replace this piece of hoses well here, because it's going to be real bare to get to otherwise. So since I'm in here, some of these rubber items as they go, especially ones that are in a hot place right next to the exhaust manifold, it seems like the right thing to do. So I mentioned earlier, this didn't slip. You can see here, that's the timing mark, the tip of my finger, not this. There's a timing mark here, and there's a timing mark there. So I think that's all. And then if we look also down here, I think you can see those are still lined up. Hard to see with the light, but everything's still in good shape. I'll double check that obviously at the end, but when we're ready to install. So that's where we sit right now. I'm probably going to call it a day here. Got it all opened up. Probably going to need to go order some parts. It's going to slow some things down.